Hey, everybody, welcome to Odd and Untold, the podcast where we talk about all things strange and spooky. And this week, I'm going to be talking a little bit about one of my favorite strange, spooky subjects, the Jersey Devil. And this episode was inspired by a book that was given to me on Christmas by my Aunt Lynn. She didn't buy it for me specifically. She actually won it in a radio contest. She called in to a radio show, and the author, the Scott Macom, was on the show, and this is his book, The Devil Leeds. And I'm sorry, but my camera is not picking it up very well. But this is his book. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. It's just been a very busy post holiday season, but I do want to read it because I do love the legend of the Jersey Devil, and it looks like a really cool book. So, Aunt Lynn, thank you for getting that for me and giving it to me. I will dive into that, and maybe I'll even see if I can get the author on the show at some point. That would be really awesome. So I did want to talk about the Jersey Devil. Before I get into that, I just want to let you guys know that we have a bonus video dropping on Tuesday, and that is going to cover it's for our Adirondacks section of our YouTube channel, where I basically showcase trips, camping trips, usually with Josh, into the Adirondacks, and we cover odd things. So Adirondacks, I make up words sometimes, lots of times. And this week, next week on Tuesday, we'll be dropping Bigfoot and the solar eclipse in the Adirondacks, because Josh and I took a trip into the Shaker Mountain Wild Forest to go to Chase Lake, and we were going to watch the solar eclipse that was happening in April there. And that trip sort of got changed. We had a pivot. We were both not feeling well, but I still took a lot of footage. We did some videos of the eclipse, of our hike into Chase Lake, because we didn't stay overnight, but we did hike just to kind of see what it would be like. And we were both not feeling great, so maybe not the best idea, but we hiked in. It was beautiful. We had lunch, and that was where we found the trail register where somebody had written, we saw Bigfoot. We saw a bear stand up on two legs and run up the mountain, stood up and run up the mountain on two legs. And I'm posting the picture of the trail register here so you guys can see it. But this person wrote that they saw a bear. It stood up and ran up the mountain on two legs. So, and I covered that in a previous episode, Bigfoot in the Adirondacks Part 2. I will link to that in the comments below. But that video publishing on Tuesday, it's a bonus video, like I said, for the Adirondacks section of our channel. It's only a little over 20 minutes long, but it kind of shows Josh and I hiking and experiencing the eclipse. And it's very cool and just a little different than what we do here. We didn't really experience anything except for that trail register note, which is really interesting. But yeah, check that out. Little bonus thing for everybody who watches us on YouTube. And if you're listening on audio, you can check us out on our YouTube channel, Odd and Untold. And that will be publishing Tuesday evening. So be sure to check that out. And let's get on to the Jersey Devil. So for this episode, I didn't really want to talk about the history of the Jersey Devil too much. I wanted to find contemporary reports, modern reports, and I'll go over some of the historical reports. We had done an episode a while back. I did one with Josh and Scott, and we watched the Small Town Monsters documentary on the Jersey Devil. I'll link to that below as well, so you guys can go find that old episode. And the Jersey Devil is a weird sort of cryptid phenomenon, supernatural being, whatever you want to call it or classify it as. It has a special place in my heart because I live on Staten Island. I was born in Brooklyn and spent a lot of my childhood in New Jersey. New Jersey's right here. And I've been to the Pine Barrens. And so to grow up with like this local legend of the Jersey Devil, being so close in proximity to me was very cool. As a kid, Bigfoot was like Pacific Northwest or way upstate New York, places I just never got to. So the Jersey Devil just seemed a little bit more close to me. But at the same time, it just doesn't ring true. There are some legends, and the legends of how the Jersey Devil came to be all differ. And there's really no one accepted legend, and the creature itself just does not seem to be able to exist. It's got like the head of a horse and the body of a goat and bat wings, and it just doesn't seem to be a real cryptid creature like Bigfoot. I mean, even if you don't believe in Bigfoot, you got to accept the possibility that it could exist. It's a primate. It's not anything fantastical. So even if you don't believe in Bigfoot, the concept of Bigfoot is at least possible, if not in existence. It is possible Gigantopithecus or just a large upright ape, or proto-human or whatever you want to call it, but it fits in with our natural world, whereas the Jersey Devil just doesn't. It seems more like something like a griffin or something out of like Greek mythology, different parts of different creatures kind of slapped together. Um, and the Jersey Devil has been spotted in Pennsylvania because Pennsylvania borders New Jersey, and it's been spotted in other places. I'm going to try to focus mainly on New Jersey sightings today. And I did look for contemporary sightings, and there's not many out there. And the ones that are, a lot of them are kind of silly. And, oh, I was out, on at my house, and it was nighttime, and something landed on the roof and it had red glowing eyes. And they didn't see anything else, probably an owl or some other bird. Why would you assume it's the Jersey Devil just because something landed on your roof? Most likely an owl. There are plenty of owls in the Pine Barrens. So just stories like that I tended to throw away because they just didn't really fit. So I'm going to talk about some of the historical stories, and I found a few modern stories, nothing fantastic, but I'll get into my thoughts on the Jersey Devil as we get on in the episode. So let's get to some stories. So as I said, the origins of the Jersey Devil are muddy at best. The most common story is that in 1735, deep in the New Jersey Pine Barrens, Mother Leeds discovered she was pregnant with her 13th child, and she exclaimed, "Let this one be the devil." And she cursed the child, and when it was born, it had horns and wings and hooves, and it flew up the chimney and retreated into the Pine Barrens and lived there for the rest of its life to terrorize people. So from this legend is one creature. It's not like a breeding population of Jersey Devils that, live in the Pine Barrens. There were other versions of the story where her name wasn't Leeds, but this woman was in Leeds Point, New Jersey. There's other stories about soldier and his mistress, and their baby was cursed. And some people say that the whole legend was started by Benjamin Franklin or other people to smear the Leeds family. Again, some people say it's a Native American legend, and they try to tie it to things like that, and it gets really murky. And that's why I think this is just one of those like game of telephone things from colonial America, pre-revolutionary America, where story was told and it was retold and retold again, and it sparked this legend, and now you have people repeating the story. And just to scroll down in this article, here's a picture of what the Jersey Devil allegedly looks like. So you can kind of see it's got like this horse head and maybe a horse body or a goat body and these bat-like wings. So does it really ring true? Not really. So one of the first reported New Jersey Devil sightings was in 1812 when Joseph Bonaparte, Napoleon's older brother, claimed he saw the Jersey Devil while hunting near his Bordentown estate. Sightings occurred and the legend grew, fueled by animal attacks, strange footprints, and reports filed by an eyewitness who supposedly encountered the beast. And here's a newspaper article about some footprints. And again, you got to remember in these days, there was a lot of yellow journalism. There was a lot of stories that were just created to sell newspapers, because that doesn't happen today, clickbait. But there was a lot of these stories just made to sell papers, and things would be either completely fabricated or highly exaggerated to point to a monster or a wild man or a Jersey Devil. So interesting. Then you had the devil craze of 1909. And I'll read this. The Jersey Devil's fame solidified itself in January of 1909 when nearly 1,000 reports came in from eyewitnesses throughout South Jersey. While testing cannonballs at Hanover Mills Works in the Pine Barrens, Navy Commander Stephen Decatur reportedly saw the creature and shot it. The cannonball blew a hole in the devil, but it wasn't fazed by the projectile. Strange tracks were found in fields, but bloodhounds allegedly refused to follow the tracks. The kids were fine with it all, though, because the schools in the Pine Barrens were closed. So this is probably the most famous flap of Jersey Devil sightings. And some people have chalked it up to mass hysteria, which I don't usually buy into. But I think when you have something like this, birds, big cranes, there could be misidentifications because you're not seeing this thing up close. A lot of people were seeing something flying, and a big bird doesn't mean that it's the Jersey Devil. Another story that's very famous is the cab attack in 1927. The Jersey Devil had died out for a while until 1927, when a taxi driver in Salem City allegedly encountered the Jersey Devil while changing a tire. The man told the police that a winged creature was pounding on the roof of the cab. So make of that what you will. Then we get to the 1960s. In 1960, several residents of Mays Landing heard horrifying screams in the night. There was no explanation for the noises, and people began to panic. Police hung flyers assuring residents that the Jersey Devil was a hoax, but a circus owner countered the appeal by offering a $100,000 reward for anyone who could capture the creature. No one ever received the reward. And this has taken place, taken a real hold in New Jersey. I know I've been to like shops in Red Bank, and there's like a Jersey Devil skeleton allegedly that you could buy, like a life-size skeleton. It's really cool, completely fake. And in Atlantic City, I remember years ago I went, and there was like a little carnival attraction on the boardwalk where you could go in, and it was this whole thing spun around the Jersey Devil legend, and very cool. And it's a cool legend, but I just don't know if I buy into these stories. In the 70s, 1972, Mary Ritzer Christensen told Weird New Jersey that she got the heebie-jeebies one night when she spotted the Jersey Devil on Green Tree Road. Christensen was driving from Blackwood to Glassboro when she says she saw a towering figure crossing the road about 25 feet behind her car. She described the figure as standing taller than the average man, with thick haunches like a goat and huge woolly head. So this kind of sounds like Goat Man or Sheep Squatch. You have all these like weird overlapping things, and there are a lot of people who believe that the Jersey Devil is Bigfoot. And I hate explaining one unknown or one unproven with another unknown or unproven. So to say that Bigfoot comes from UFOs, well, or portals, like we don't know that portals exist. So how does that explain Bigfoot? Same thing here. I think that people are seeing things, and the Pine Barrens are creepy. I've been there, and I'm going to get to a story about that in a little bit. But I do just wonder about all the misidentifications that can happen. And this, to me, doesn't even sound like the Jersey Devil. It sounds like Bigfoot. It's tall, it's bulky, a woolly head. It sounds more like a Bigfoot. So make of that what you will. In 1980, forest rangers, Chief Ranger Alan McFarland, saw something that both grossed him out and stumped him. A brutal scene on South Jersey farm where a pack of pigs had been killed. He reported that the backs of their heads were eaten and their bodies were scratched and torn. However, there were no tracks surrounding the bodies and no blood on the ground. Could the Jersey Devil have been behind this? Again, I don't like these sightings or these experiences or stories where there is no sighting. Like, you just have these dead animals. Was it the Jersey Devil? Like, why is that the go-to? It could have been any number of things that kill these animals, and yet they go to the Jersey Devil site. So Asbury Park, and John and I, a few episodes back, mentioned Asbury Park, and I have to have him on the show again to tell our story of Asbury Park. It has nothing to do with the paranormal, but it's kind of creepy, and it's a funny story, and it's one that we look back on now with humor. At the time, it wasn't so funny, but I'll have to have John back on. We'll talk about Asbury Park. You'll never see them coming. In 1988, an Asbury Park Press reporter, and the story, there's a link here, but it goes nowhere. So I was hoping to find the story, but I can't find it. Told the story of a Howell Township resident who claimed to have encountered the Jersey Devil 7 years prior. This eyewitness must have been up close and personal with the devil because he described the beast right down to his large teeth. And there's no details here. So that is kind of sad. In the late 1980s, a group of friends went camping and riding dirt bikes in the Pine Barrens. While riding down a trail about 100 yards from camp, the bikes all stalled. One said it could have to do with the terrain or the nearby power plant. However, as suddenly as the bikes quit running, the men heard a piercing, inhuman scream coming from the woods. When they returned to camp, those who stayed behind said they'd also heard the screams. That evening, one of the men went into a local bar and told the bartender about the screams in the wood. In the woods, the man informed the visitor that he had most likely had an encounter with the Jersey Devil. And that is another aspect of the devil. It's like these piercing, blood curdling screams. And a lot of people will hear these screams in the Pine Barrens and attribute it to the Jersey Devil without seeing anything. They just hear screams. Now, again, is this an owl? Is this some sort of other bird? Could it be coyotes? Could it be some other animal in the Pine Barrens? Quite possibly. Again, a lot of people are going to say it's Bigfoot because it's the Bigfoot scream or howl. I don't know. Again, I hate using one unknown to explain another unknown, but just food for thought. In 1993, forest ranger John Irwin was driving along the Mullica River when he saw a strange creature blocking the road ahead of him. He said it was about 6 feet tall with horns and matted black fur. The two stared at each other for several minutes before the creature turned and ran into the forest. Here's another one that sounds more like a sheep squatch or a goat man versus the Jersey Devil. There's no wings. It doesn't fly away. He says it turns and runs into the woods. Horns and matted black fur, 6 feet tall. Doesn't really sound like the Jersey Devil to me. It sounds like something else. I don't know what that is, but it sounds like sheep squatch or a goat man. Another story. One evening while taking out the trash, Fran Coppolo, owner of the Smithville Inn and Village in Galloway Township, saw a strange shadow projected onto the wall before her. She said she looked up and she saw the shadow of a beast with wings. While the image had to be frightening, Coppolo said she felt calm, as if the Jersey Devil was watching over her. Perhaps he was curious about what was in her trash. Again, it's a shadow. This could have been a bird, a bat, and something flying in front of a light can project a very large shadow, and it could just appear to be much bigger than it actually is. So, scary encounter, spooky for her, perhaps, but there's too many other things this could have been. All right, this next one, I remember when this first came out, and there's a picture here, and it's ridiculous, but I'm going to talk about it. While traveling on Route 9 in Bayville, 3 cars were forced to slam on their brakes when, according to one witness, a 10-foot-tall Jersey Devil figure with a long head and short, flat ears ran across the road. One witness reported that the creature emerged from a wooded area near a mini mall and galloped out in front of traffic, disappearing into the woods on the other side of the street. Maybe the beast had just gotten a devil of a deal at his favorite boutique. So this story, again, sounds like Bigfoot. 10 feet tall, long head, but short, flat ears, ran across the road. It's not flying. It's very tall. The thing I was talking about, reader Dave Black of Little Egg Harbor captured this photo in Galloway Township. This is a photo. It looks like a goat with wings photoshopped onto a tree. It does not look natural at all. It looks like it's like the legs look like it's standing on the ground. And this image has just been photoshopped, and it's like a silhouette. But I remember when this picture was making the rounds, and people were like, "Oh my God, it's the devil!" It looks ridiculous to me. So, what do you guys think of this photo? So yeah, the story goes David Black said he was driving along Route 9 near a golf course when he saw what he thought was a llama walking in and out of the tree line on the side of the road. Suddenly, the creature spread its wings and flew away. He captured the beast's image with his cell phone, and the photo went viral. So yeah, I remember this one. It just looks ridiculous. It looks really silly, and I don't know why people buy it. Even if it's real, it just looks ridiculous. I don't think it's real. But even if it were real, it just looks fake and ridiculous. So, a few days after David Black supposedly captured the Jersey Devil with his cell phone's camera, Emily Martin shot a video of what appears to be the same creature after she spotted it on Old Port Public Road near Leeds Point. Both Black and Martin swear neither the image nor the video were edited or set up. Some who have seen the photos and videos have their suspicions, like me. And I'll see if I can put this video in here just so you guys can see it. But there's a link to this article here. And let's see if this works. I'll play that for you guys again. And I'll try to... I mean, it looks kind of silly. I don't know. What do you guys think of this video? Um, just seems really silly to me. All right, so those were just a bunch of collected tales from early history to more modern day from NewJersey.com. And I appreciate them collating those stories. The last two, the photo and the video of that thing flying, looks like really just good fakes. I mean, it's silhouetted, it's blurry, there's no detail, and the picture just looks like a goat with photoshopped onto some trees with wings added to it, and the video to me it looks like a Muppet or something out of a cartoon. It's not a bad CGI job, but it just looks ridiculous and looks nothing like what the Jersey Devil's supposed to look like. I mean, this thing was like bulky and thick legs, just weird. So I'm going to go on to some stories I found on the internet, mainly Reddit, and talk about those. And we'll see what you guys think of the Jersey Devil, and I'll give my thoughts on these stories as well. All right, so this story I'm pulling from Phantoms and Monsters, Lon Strickler, his website. This is from September 21st of 2024. Jersey Devil, teen claims encounter while camping in the Pine Barrens. A New Jersey teen girl is RVing with her father in the Pine Barrens. That first night during a storm, the witness claims that a horse-headed entity was looking through the RV window. So I'm going to read this story, and then I'm going to tell you a personal story of mine from the Pine Barrens. So she says, I'm a Jersey native born and raised, and I was about 14 when my entire family went camping in the Pine Barrens. Ever since I was little, I've been into occult stuff, so I already knew about the Jersey Devil. I was one of the oldest cousins, so I can't tell you how many times we searched for the cabin that it was born in. Also, I should mention we used to go camping there all the time, less and less as we got older, but the point is we did this often. So I remember it being the first night. We on average would spend a week, and I remember we watched the movie Coraline that had just come out. I'm mentioning this because I had a pretty fun night before I encountered it, so it wasn't a nightmare-induced hallucination or anything. So another fact is that my family didn't like to actually camp. We had RVs, so not in a tent, they're using a recreational vehicle. So it's just my dad and I in our camper, and it had one bed in the back, and I slept on the couch that pulled out to be another bed. My dad closed all the blinds we had, and I was next to the biggest window in the camper. I'm asleep and happy, and then boom, I wake up from thunder and lightning. I remember not liking how loud it was and not being able to go back to sleep. So I'm just laying there listening to the storm, which must have been right above us because the lightning was frequent. Okay, so now this is where I think I'm hearing something. Footsteps, thought. I thought I did, and then I was like, maybe it's just an animal. But they started off quiet and, of course, got louder and louder and closer. I'm still really not thinking anything yet. I mean, I was still freaked out, but again, I was certain it was just the storm. In a matter of seconds, it was like, uh-oh, not the storm. Mind you, I'm facing the window up against the wall so I could look up the blinds to see a tiny bit of outside. This is important info because that's when this thing came up to the window. So I'm barely breathing because in my head, I'm like, what the hell just stomped up to our RV? Again, this all happened very fast, and the lightning strikes, boom. It looks like a horse is looking into the RV. Honestly, typing this, I can still hear it breathing on the glass. I only saw a little of the bottom of its chin, I guess. This might have been my imagination, but I'm pretty sure I saw what looked like fangs, and once that lightning struck, I spun around so I wasn't facing the window anymore. I regretted moving at all, and at this point, I'm holding my breath, begging that whatever is out there didn't see me just now. So lightning strikes again, and I see its shadow, almost as if lightning was striking directly behind it. It looked like a horse, definitely had the same size head as a horse, but the top half seemed to resemble a goat. It looked like it had a spiral horns, or at least something that made the top of its head look weird. Also, please remember, I was only seeing what I could from lightning striking. It starts to make its way towards the front of the RV, and like I said, all of our blinds are shut, so as soon as I heard the loud footsteps making their way towards the front, I basically jumped from my bed into my dad's. I laid down behind him and didn't want to make too much movement, but I was shaking him and trying to get him up. He said something like, just go back to bed. He knew I wasn't a fan of storms, so that was probably his first, still half asleep thought. Just to paint a clearer picture, I'm up against the wall behind my dad. There's a window in front of him and one at the top of our heads. The footsteps came around again, and since I was behind my big dad, when the lightning struck, I could only see the weird top part of its head, the ears and the horns, I guess. Anyway, it was there, looking in. Like I said, I can still hear the heavy breathing because it was terrifying. The most confusing thing is that when it left and headed towards my aunt's campgrounds, so was the storm. In the beginning, when I initially woke up from the storm, I guess it must have been close. I guess, in my theory, maybe since this thing was so loud with its hooves and breathing, that's what it does. Creates a storm so it can still be stealthy. And here we get into some like real supernatural weird stuff. I've dealt with people who've led survival camps and have spent years in the Pine Barrens with no sign whatsoever, but that's what's so intriguing in my opinion. I mean, it is an entity. It could probably make a storm if it wanted to. So as it left, the storm calmed down and I finally got back to sleep. In the morning, of course, my dad and aunt didn't believe me, and going outside that morning, the ground was still semi-wet, but I remember there being no footprints. I mean, if this was some sort of nasty horse walking around, it would have had to have been at least 8 feet tall to look in the window like that, unless it was standing on its back legs. That was my big argument with my aunt and dad on why there was no way it was a horse. I live in Jersey City now, but I'll never forget that camping trip. It happened so fast, but takes forever to tell. I always wanted to share my story, but was reluctant. So, an interesting story. I have some issues with this. Could it have been a horse? Absolutely. If it kept raining after the horse left, even though the storm went away, if it still was rainy and muddy, the footprints could have washed away easily. She's saying it had horns. She admits she didn't like storms. So she's saying it's not a nightmare induced hallucination, but she didn't like storms. So she easily could have been frightened. And a normal animal looking in the window could have freaked her out. So uh, she's not really seeing wings. She's seeing horns on the head, maybe. But again, it makes me wonder. You know, she says she was into the occult. She was aware of the Jersey Devil. She's seeing just this in flashes of lightning. You know, that's all the time she's seeing this thing. So her perceptions could be very skewed. So this one, I'm going to chalk this up to a horse or just another misidentification. I don't think this is the Jersey Devil. Uh, I picked this story because when I was in high school, I was dating a girl, and her family lived down in southern Jersey, but they had an RV, and it was in the Pine Barrens. And one of the times I went down to see her, it was this long distance high school relationship sort of thing. But one time I went down there and I stayed with her family in the Pine Barrens for 3 or 4 nights. I forget how long it was now. And the first night I was there, I was sleeping in the bedroom all the way in the back, and it was her bedroom, but she was sleeping out on the couch and I was in the bedroom. We were in high school. Her parents didn't want us sleeping together for obvious reasons, but I'm in the back, and it's probably about 1:30 in the morning. And there's just this heavy banging on the window where I'm sleeping, you know, the wall and the window where I'm sleeping, and something's banging on it. And of course, me being who I am, I was aware of the Jersey Devil when I was 16 or 17, whenever this happened, and jumped up, and I'm freaking out because now there's like, who the hell is banging on, you know, what is banging on this? Of course, like I'm sleeping, and it's got to be the Jersey Devil or it's Bigfoot, because it was just this pounding. And I finally get up the courage to look out the window, and it was my girlfriend's older brother. He had gone to a concert and lost his keys, and he couldn't get into their house. So he drove to his parents' RV to stay the night with them. And he thought his sister was in that room. So that's why he was banging, you know, and he was like, she wasn't waking up. So it was just kind of funny that, you know, scared the bejesus out of me, because just out of a sound sleep, there's this banging and something just like trying to get into the, you know, to the RV. But it was just him. He had lost his keys, and he was a couple of years older, so maybe 19 or so. But he couldn't get into his house, so he drove to the RV and was like, hey, I'm going to stay with you guys tonight. And but yeah, just very similar, like, you know, teenager aware of the Jersey Devil, having this experience. And for me, it was not the Jersey Devil, but for her, I don't know what this person on Phantoms and Monsters here saw, but I'm going to say it's a horse. That's just me. So there's 3 more stories. They're not very long. These are all from Reddit. Like I said, I'm not really coming across many contemporary stories of the Jersey Devil. A lot of Bigfoot stories in the Pine Barrens, but people are seeing Bigfoot, not the Jersey Devil. And a lot of the stories, like I said, I could chalk, they're just not interesting enough because they're just clearly like an owl or something else. But this user, VJackal1, 7 months ago, says, one time I saw a creature bolting through the woods. He had wings, was about 3 to 4 feet tall, had gray skin and fangs. His legs were bent backwards like he leaped, and he had sharp taloned toenails. His eyes were black and he had no hair, either a Native American spirit or the Jersey Devil. So, an interesting sighting. It doesn't quite sound like the traditional Jersey Devil. The legs bent backwards, that kind of does sound like an equine or a goat. But the sharp taloned toenails, the Jersey Devil is usually described as having hooves, not claws. Uh, but it had wings, 3 to 4 feet tall, and one of my blinds just fell. So I'm distracted. That's why weird things always happen during the show. And I'm not saying that was paranormal, but there's always a noise or something, usually when John's on. But talking about the Jersey Devil, and things are dropping here. So yeah, this is interesting. It doesn't say when or where this happened, just in the woods. One time I saw a creature. I don't know what to make of this. Um, I enjoy stories like this, these kind of one-offs, like the Dover Demon. I mean, that was like one of these things that happened once up in Massachusetts back in the 70s, and no one's ever really seen it again. It kind of resembled a gray alien, but seemed more like an animal or a small humanoid. I don't know, but I love the Dover Demon story. Again, don't know what that was. I love the Jersey Devil legend. I don't necessarily believe it. This story, I don't know what this was. This sounds like it could have been a misidentification of a smaller animal. So another one from Reddit. Do people still know about the Jersey Devil? Such a scenic world user says, very much so. I actually even have my own story / experience involving the Jersey Devil. So someone asks if he wants to share. And they write, sure, I just heard something huge and loud scream like a person up in the forest canopy in the early morning when I was camping in the Pine Barrens. When I mean huge, I mean it felt like the Nazgul's flying mount or the pterodactyl in the actual forest suddenly came to life with the trees whooshing like there was a big storm. So that's interesting because the girl on Phantoms and Monsters mentions the storm as well. Here's the thing, though. I am literally a scientist with a PhD in behavioral ecology. I spent years living in remote parts of the world, studying wildlife, and have seen some weird and interesting stuff. Despite that, whatever I encountered in the Pine Barrens was absolutely unlike anything I ever experienced in my entire life, and that is even after realizing that the forest can play tricks on your mind, or potentially it could be a hoax. So that is interesting to me. Again, you hear the loud scream, the blood-curdling scream, something like they've never heard before, something huge. We hear this in Bigfoot reports. We hear this a lot. And in the Pine Barrens, the screams are associated with the Jersey Devil. So he's saying he had this experience. He's not saying it's definitely the Jersey Devil. He's just saying he was camping in the Pine Barrens early morning. He hears this huge scream, and the forest came to life, and there was wind. He's been in remote parts of the world. He's studied wildlife. It's nothing like he's ever heard before. So I always take those things to heart. Does that mean he heard the Jersey Devil? No, but it's interesting that you have someone who's experienced with these things. It's not just some city slicker going into the woods for the night looking for the devil, and then every weird sound becomes the devil, the Jersey Devil. But he's clearly experienced. He's clearly a smart guy or woman who heard something. So not sure what to make of that. But again, you hear the screams, you hear these blood-curdling screams associated with the Jersey Devil and in the Pine Barrens. So what is it? I don't know. But an interesting story nonetheless. Okay, and the last story about the Jersey Devil comes from user EJ Legak in the Jersey Devil subreddit. It writes, my encounter with the Jersey Devil. Living one town west of the Pine Barrens, I occasionally hear stories of the devil, how it is impervious to bullets, how it took a blow from a cannon, as I mentioned earlier. But I never thought I would encounter it myself. Around a week ago, I was visiting some family in Washington, the town, and this was posted 3 months ago. So talking just 3 months ago, this happened. He was visiting some family in Washington, which is about an hour drive. While driving south on the 206, I encountered a deer. It was moving from left to right. A minute later, another deer moving in the same direction. In the next 2 minutes, I encountered 4 more deer. That's 2 deer a minute. I was very confused until I heard a strange screeching noise and something flew overhead, blocking out the moon. I was terrified, so I sped up, Only around 20 seconds later, the corpse of a deer was thrown onto the road in front of me, and a large creature emerged from the woods. It looked like it had the head and legs of a goat, the body and arms of a man, massive wings, and a tail that looked straight up demonic. At that point, my lights started to flicker, and I lost sight of the creature. When I could see the road again, the deer and the devil had disappeared. When I got to my destination, I told my family about it, and we concluded that it was the Jersey Devil that I had seen. So this is a stretch, and I understand, if you don't believe in Bigfoot stories are a stretch. But again, Bigfoot sort of fits in with our natural world. What he's seeing here does not. This sounds supernatural. He says it looks straight up demonic. Wings and the head and legs of a goat, body and arms of a man, wings. It sounds like a satyr. It sounds like the traditional, the oldie time vision of the devil, just this horned goat man with wings. I mean, the long tail. I mean, the only thing it's missing is the pitchfork. So, interesting. He's seeing the deer. There's a dead deer that's dropped. So maybe this thing was flying. And we hear this a lot with Bigfoot sightings, that it'll attack a deer, or they're seen carrying a dead deer under their arm as it's crossing the road. I did a story last week. A user on my channel mentioned that he saw a Bigfoot chasing a deer, and it swiped at its hind legs, and the deer went down, and then he grabbed the deer and like broke its neck and then ran off with the corpse of the deer. Which sounds spooky enough, but this is like this weird devil-like creature. So I'm not sure what to make of this. And again, I don't like assuming that people go online to lie. Why would they post this anonymously? They're not making money off this, and maybe they're tricking people. Maybe they get off on that. Maybe that tickles their fancy to, lie to people. And again, I don't believe in the Jersey Devil. I don't believe it exists. Is this person lying? Possibly. Or they saw something they couldn't explain. And again, if you're in the Pine Barrens and you're thinking Jersey Devil, when you see something you can't explain, your mind may fill in certain blanks. And the ears on the head might look more like horns, and something behind the creature may look like wings, and maybe it's just a tree or a bush. And when you're seeing this thing in the split second, your brain is putting together Jersey Devil, because again, your focus determines your reality. And if you're looking for Bigfoot, you're going to see Bigfoot. You're going to see signs of Bigfoot. Every depression in the ground is going to look like a Bigfoot print. If you're looking for the Jersey Devil, everything that looks like a hoof print, or every weird bird in the sky, maybe that's the Jersey Devil. Every scream in the woods, maybe that's the Jersey Devil. So, not sure what to make of this. But a cool story, spooky story. If you believe in the Jersey Devil, this is a creepy story. He's got some details here that other stories don't really have, and it's one of the better stories I found on the internet. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. That's up for you guys to decide, but I wanted to present it here for you. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. All right, everybody, there's some contemporary Jersey Devil sightings and stories. I want to hear what you guys think about the Jersey Devil. Do you think it's a real supernatural being? Do you think it's a cryptid? Do you think they're just misidentifications? Do you think it's all a big hoax? What do you guys think the Jersey Devil is? Again, it's near and dear to my heart just because it's local. I do not believe in it personally. Do I think that Bigfoot could exist in the Pine Barrens? Absolutely. It's a creepy place. It's vast. I tend to believe that Bigfoot exists, or the possibility exists that it can exist. And the Jersey Devil just seems a little too supernatural and demonic and paranormal for my tastes, to be a living, breathing creature, kind of like Dogman and Skinwalkers and these other things, where I think there's some basis for the legend. All legends come from somewhere. But does that mean that the Jersey Devil is actually real? I don't think so. I don't think there's a horse, goat, Batman thing flying through the Pine Barrens and screeching and scaring campers. But who knows? I could be wrong. And, sometimes I hope I am wrong about these things, because I think the world is more interesting if these things do exist, to quote Mike Familon, who was on the show early on in this podcast's run, and he investigates Bigfoot in New Jersey, and he mentioned the Jersey Devil. So got to have him back on the show soon, hopefully. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Check out our YouTube channel on Tuesday for our Adirondacks episode. Me and Josh camping up to Chase Lake and Bigfoot stuff and Eclipse, and we got some cool footage. And it's just a nice glimpse into Josh and I camping. And some of you, Christy, have mentioned that they like seeing me without this fake background and the green screen, and that is a good episode to see me out in nature and just no green screen, no editing, just me talking into my phone. So check that out. If you guys have a story, if you've seen the Jersey Devil, if you've seen Bigfoot, if you got ghost stories, any cool stories you want to share, if you want to be on the show, if you just want to tell me privately, I will keep things private. Shoot me an email, jason@oddanduntold.com. I respond to all emails as quickly as I can. You can leave a comment down below. I respond to all comments that I can see. Sometimes I don't see them on YouTube. It's weird. Other people will say, hey, so-and-so commented. And I'm like, I don't see it, so I can't respond to it. It's just weird. But best way to get me is to shoot me an email. But leave the comments below, too. That's great for our algorithm. And I love interacting with you guys. And until next time, everybody, question everything. Does a giant bat horse creature roam New Jersey, the Pine Barrens? Or is it just something else? But question it, whether you believe, whether you disbelieve, if you're a skeptic, if you're a true believer, question it, because that's the only way we get to the truth. And, we're all trying to get to the same destination. We're just all taking different roads and different theories, different points of view, but we all want to get to the truth. And that's why I do this show. And that's why I watch other podcasts. And that's why I love your feedback. So with that being said, everybody, until next week, rock and roll. Watch out for the Jersey Devil.